Welcome, dear participants. Dear all, the theme for this session is How Coaching Created a Common Language at Schindler India. To get more insights, I now invite on stage our moderator and my alumnus from Jamnalal Bajaj, Mr. Shripad Ranade. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you. He is a leadership coach and management consultant at International Coach Federation. He also serves on FICCI national committees for capital goods and industry 4.0. To join him, I invite our speaker, Mr. Rajat Garg, former chairperson, ICF Global Enterprise Board, and co-founder and leadership coach of Coach to Transformation. He is a master certified leadership coach with 20 plus years of industry experience of over 2,500 coaching hours. I now also invite Mr. Sailesh Vilankar, Senior Vice President, Field Operations at Schindler, and a well-known name in the field of elevators and escalators. He is serving the organization for more than 17 years. In the 2020 lockdown, when all of us were relaxing, he wrote his book, Mind Over Matter. The country may be under lockdown, but our mindset doesn't have to be. That is indeed a great title, sir. And lastly, to complete this stage, I call upon Mr. Sitij Bhusari, Head Talent and Organizational Development, Schindler India. He is working with Schindler since past 7 plus years and is recipient of Schindler India President Award 2019. Previously, he has also worked on dynamic HR titles with industry giants like Mahindra, Marico Limited, and others. It's indeed my honor to introduce you, and the stage is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Isha. Thank you very much for the introductions and for your, in fact, flattering take on some of our introductions. So, always nice to start on that note. Uh, on behalf of the International Coaching Federation, who is the collaboration partner for this particular session, it is first appropriate that I thank the National HRD Network for giving the International Coaching Federation's Mumbai chapter the opportunity to team up with you and to come together for a common love of coaching and all that it can be. Having said that, I'm also here with an embarrassment of riches because I have three panelists here who are going to tell us not in general about how coaching works and what their views about coaching are, because those of us in the audience would have heard of that earlier. But what we are going to do today is to hear from them specifically about how they got coaching to work for them in their organization, how they created a common language for the organization using coaching as the tool of choice. So we are not going to speak so much about coaching, but more about getting coached. And I'm aware that in our audience here, and I can see there are quite a number of people in the session, there will be varying amounts of awareness about what coaching is and what coaching does. And for a few of us who are not up to speed, let me take a couple of moments to just mention a little bit about coaching. I mentioned that I represent here the International Coaching Federation. Coaching started about 3 decades back as a profession which was based on the idea that people can be better versions of themselves, not just by being told what they can do, but also by being asked what they can do. It developed from there with roots in psychology and organizational behavior, and it moved today to being a profession which is regulated and represented globally by the International Coaching Federation. And today, I'm joined, in fact, by Rajat, who is going to tell us a little bit not only about the case, because he is the coach who has made this happen, but also a little bit more about the ICF itself. And thereafter, we are going to hear a little bit from Kshitij, who has had a ringside view of how coaching was brought into the organization and how he got it to work. And then we are going to also hear from Shailesh, who is going to tell us how he experienced coaching for the first time and where they are now as Schindler India in their coaching journey. And when you listen to a case study, most of us think of a case study as something that happened in the past, which has got printed and a professor has made a case of it. What we have today is something better. These gentlemen are in the process of creating this history, and we have a ringside view to history as it happens. Having said that, I now call upon Rajat Rajat, if you can start off and let's dive right into it because we're already about 5 minutes past our session time. What is it that Schindler looked at when they first came across this animal called coaching? Where did it start? Can you just give us a bit of an overview of where coaching came and how it landed at Schindler?
So, thank you, Shripad. Pleasure to be here as well. Uh, it all started with Kshitij coming for our coach training program as an individual, and Sheetal, who's the current CHRO of Schindler. They both coming to the program. It started from there, and and Kshitij will take us through what happened for him. I don't want to burst the bubble on this one, but then I think at some point we started discussing on what next, right? How can we take this larger? How can we have Schindler go through a process of making this an integral part of the organization itself, right? And what interested me, and we'll talk about, is the fact that they never took coaching as a correctional construct, right, or a issue-based construct. They were, like, from start, it was all about developmental in Schindler, right? They wanted to develop leaders, and that is where they started talking about coaching itself. And I think that is where the International Coaching Federation, ICF, comes in and brings in that larger piece of saying how coaching can be democratized, can reach each and every person in the world itself, right? And they are doing through chapters like the ICF Mumbai chapter, who has created this event itself, gotten us all together, right? And the intent is how everybody, not just a leader in an organization, but a person outside, a homemaker, even a university child, can have access to coaching. And I think that's what we are trying to create in Schindler as of now. And I will let Kshitij talk about more of this next, as to why he came in, what happened for him, and then I will circle back on what else happened here.
Thank you so much, Rajat. And I think I remember the conversation that we had here in the office, and where how you got into coaching, where you mentioned about that, you got hooked to coaching, and probably I realized that maybe I might join it and I might kind of do away with my job and get back fully into coaching. But yes, to kind of answer your question, what happened with me, I think if I go with the tagline here, Meta, Mega, Me and More, I think I was able to discover more about me. And I think it was absolutely not a comfortable journey. I was highly, highly uncomfortable, because as an HR, what happens is that we know certain tools and we think that I know coaching, right? And coaching is a word which is so loosely used across. Now, if you ask a line manager, anyone, what am I doing? I do a lot of coaching. मैं बहुत coaching करता हूँ at times. Typical these lines that you get around, right? So I probably came from that school of thought where I knew certain tools and I thought that I would know coaching. And the entire journey made me so uncomfortable, because the whole unlearning aspect happened, right? And I was seeing the world where I want to see the world. And I think, in Raj's language, he says 3 plus 3 6 aapke liye hoga, but maybe for a client 3 plus 3 could be 9. And the ability to accept that 3 plus 3 is 9 for the other person requires a lot of acceptance. And I think for me, that acceptance happened for myself. I think today I'm more comfortable in my own skin, right? I'm okay to be vulnerable around people, and okay to kind of, call my short calls, short fallings, and weaknesses also around. I think the coaching gave me a lot of aspect where I felt a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident. And when me and my CHRO joined in, I think it's been 3 years, Rajat, we started on this journey. And I think we knew each other, me and my CHRO, for 6-7 years. We realized in the last 2 to 3 years, our conversation language got changed, right? And somewhere down the line, I knew if I go with this particular challenge or a topic to discuss, what questions would be coming to me. And I would rather be prepared myself, right? And in a way, we are able to kind of build a different perspective altogether. And in one such conversation, she said to me, Kshitij, do you see that some language is changing between us? And obviously we are able to see some relationship improvement. Obviously, without by default, the trust kind of level went up. The whole understanding aspect kind of improved. And then she said, can we take this language down the line, or maybe to an external community? And that's where this whole philosophy of doing this coaching program, and where we created a 3 to 4 months learning journey for all the leadership team around. and then that's where the whole game started around. So for us, so we had a very clear cut business case for us. We probably wanted to evolve. Since last 3-4 years, there were a lot of transition that was going around within the organization, because it's important to understand also the context. While I might really love to have that language around the organization, but I need to understand what's the context that probably we are working around. And as an organization, we realized that we were in the transition phase. There is a lot of leadership change happening, a lot of transformational stuff happening. We also wanted to build quality of conversations. And when I say quality of conversation, we wanted to bring a lot of meaning to the conversations and just not restrict to performance reviews or development reviews, because formal channels are there, but formal channels are limited to really create that influence and impact. Where it hits the engagement are the informal channels, where I can have a conversation which could be a 5-10 minutes, on a chai ka tapri, or it could be a one-to-one check-in, right? And in the whole pandemic scenario, we realized that people virtually were working very well. They were happy, kind of safe, but the social capital kind of got really disconnected, and we wanted to kind of leverage that through a lot of conversation. So conversation played a very vital role in making sure that we make it meaningful for people. The third business case for us was we were in kind of in still process of creating an inclusive organization, right? Last 3-4 years, we probably have a very different mix of people. We have 78 to 80% millennials across the organization. You have four generations, right? From Gen Y, Gen Z to baby boomers, right? The gender thing. This thing also kind of increased drastically for us in the last 3 to 4 years. We were able to hire double the female members what we ever had. We earlier used to take people from only elevator. We were then moved to non-elevator background. So now when you sit around with so much of different generation mix, right? And especially when you have people from different personality types also. You might have an introvert, you might have an extrovert, but the ability to kind of reach out to them is through conversation. And coaching is what breaks that conversation and tool. So we thought this is the right way to kind of do that. So that was my third. Fourth was very important thing that we do is in once in 2 years we do a manager feedback survey, where an employer, where an employee gives a feedback to the manager. It's the other way around, to kind of give a feedback. And typically when we receive this feedback as managers, we realize that there are a number of leadership styles that exist, right? And as a fast-based organizations, we probably we're more inching toward a directive style. Whereas there are a lot of other styles that are also there. Like you have affiliative style, you have pace setting style, you have participative style, you have coaching style. So as an organization, we realized that we need to really change the game, equip our people with also coaching tool. Right. So these were a few elements we thought that not just from a training perspective, we looked at it more from a cultural perspective, because when you look at training perspective, you have a limited way of kind of looking at an intervention. We looked at from a system perspective where all it can hit. And with that, we kind of initiated this whole aspect. And I think I should do the less talking because I have got a customer with me, Shailesh, who's gone through it. So I would rather not talk about it. My job is very simple because I've got a customer. So maybe I'll probably hand it over to him to speak about what his experience was.
Yeah, so thank you, Kshitish. Thank you, NHRD. Thank you, ICF, and of course, the CTT, Rajat. I think I really want to thank you personally because I've gone through the initial sessions of this coaching, which was organized by you and Arvind. And I must tell you that initially it was a huge resistance inside my mind. However, now Kshitij is saying that I am the customer, but initially HR ने बोला तो करना पड़ेगा. That was the kind of mindset I had. But when I attended first, second, third session, and I just fell in love with this. And like Kshitij was mentioning, this is basically, if I look at our kind of industry, which is into elevator, escalator, globally from 1875, in India from 1996, you have to deal with a lot of stakeholders. You have your sales, installation, maintenance team, you have customer contracts, customer side team, subcontractor, technician. So by default, you tend to become directive because we have so many issues going on across India. So you cannot have different style, but we have been there, we have done that. So this issue, page 56, paragraph 2, solution given. Move on, move on, move on. But then we realize, and especially on this pandemic, that we cannot sustain this kind of leadership. It was okay when we were small, maybe in 2005, 2008. But the way we have grown, I think the the leadership style also has to change. And the major impact what Kshitish was talking about, the new generation, the millennials who are joining, they cannot, they want something different. In fact, the classic example was my daughter, who's 22 years old, doing her psychology. Once during this pandemic, because I could spend more time with her, told me, Dad, I wouldn't be able to work with a boss like you. That was shocking to me. My own daughter telling me. So then when Kshitish told me we are doing this, I said I want to attend. And initially, I don't know whether it was a right decision or wrong, but I wanted to give it a try. And the journey started. But I must tell you, Rajat, fantastic work by CTT. Suppose if the session is rescheduled, we used to miss that. And we all really love that. Different participants from field operations, from finance, from HR, from technical. But the way the trust has developed, when we meet still, we still discuss about what we did in that coaching session. So thank you very much.
So I'll give Rajat a chance to acknowledge all that you're saying about what you did, but let me jump in first. I must say that this beautiful energy that I see between Rajat, Shailesh, Kshitish, at a job well done and still ongoing. I'm very curious on behalf of the audience, what did you guys do to make sure that this was communicated in a way, as Kshitish, you said earlier, that this was not for correction and this was not just a tool. This was for development and this was a language. So how did you go about that communication? What challenges did you go through when you did that? I'm curious about that. Of course, we'll come to the design and all that. I'm sure that people in the audience want to know the brass tacks of how you have designed the program. But before that, how did you get the message through?
So in that case, maybe Shripad, my answer might disappoint you because I will probably say we didn't have any communication strategy. But apart from what we did, what Anurag Kashyap does, he releases the movie. If the movie has got a substance, people do the talking. So I think the strategy was very clear that we wanted to experiment, we wanted to pilot it. So we asked people who would want to volunteer to become coaches. And we asked for a simple justification that if you become a coach, how will you impact the organization? And why do you want to kind of enroll for this course? A short video was created for all the people. We got the nominations and we got very unique answers in terms of why they wanted to do it. Because I think to be a coach, very important is you have to have a solid purpose. That innate purpose to go and make a difference in someone's life has to be there. So that fire has to be there, somewhere that I want to go and make a difference. So if that is there, I think that was probably, the gate pass for joining into coaching. And I think as we progressed, every session we were kind of building on. And I think I remember after the session, Shailesh used to go and talk to a lot of other people that, this is what I discovered. In the management meeting, in the board meeting, in the various other meetings, you were calling out about this. So I think my second batch was very easy. In fact, today, as I speak to you, we started the second batch. And it was very easy because half of the people came because Shailesh mentioned this is one of the worst program I ever attended because 17 years it told me how uncomfortable I am to attend such a program. So he went on talking about this. So it all started with that. So I think we started with a clear purpose and asking people why you want to do it and probably let people do the talking rather than we kind of going and promoting and talking about it.
So I will just add, Kshitish, in fact, what you rightly mentioned, I was in Bangalore and I was talking to the team and I said, this is one of the worst program I have attended and I recommend everyone should attend this. Because during that journey, we realize how pathetic we are. And without, nobody is hitting out to us. We only realize that. So the questioning from Arvind was so strong, the self-realization was so high that many times, I used to get into fatigue mode, frustration mode that Arvind is talking simple language in English. Why I'm getting it so difficult? Why I'm not able to understand? The gap between me and Arvind is why so high? So that was the challenge initially, Shripad, at least I faced personally. But as I told you, I think this is the journey which we have started and we want to do it more. In fact, now, so it was a batch of initial 20 people. The second batch, as Kshitish mentioned, that started today. We will be extending this to all the Schindler talent radar, which the group of people we have inside. We have already assigned coaches for them. So I think it's a long journey, but we are already decided to go all out to make everybody a coach.
So Rajat, actually, that makes me curious. I know you were going to speak about that, but I'm going to add something to what I want from you, which is that Kshitij and Shailesh both spoke about the first batch and the second batch. Can you contextualize that for the audiences? What are these batches they're talking about, and where are these coaches coming from, inside, outside?
Yeah. So, I would like to acknowledge Shailesh, what he went through, right? I completely understand, and I think that's the declaration that we do with everybody who wants to become a coach. And you will have to become uncomfortable first to become something else, right? And as leaders, people like Shailesh who are sitting at the top of an organization, the fact that they are ready to get uncomfortable at this time of their lives is amazing, right? And that they are then putting it out there to the world within their organization saying, you need to do this for yourself and not for the organization, right? That's the best communication strategy that we can have out there, right? And what Kshitij is not telling you is basically the fact that he also has some backend work that goes on. He creates trailers like Netflix and all, right? And which goes out to the audience inside the organization for people to get some idea of what's going to happen to them. And there's a lot of feedback that has been created as well, right? So going back to the design part, right? So for any successful coaching culture creation, there are three important pieces of any design, right? One is to have external coaches out there. Second is to create internal coaches for yourself. And the third is getting coaching done for everyone, in the giving option to everyone to get coached, right? So what I love about what Schindler and Kshitij have done is they started with creating internal coaches first. So they started the training program first, so that their ability to reach more people within the organization increases. So that first cohort of 20 leaders, which included Shailesh, imagine somebody like Shailesh coming in for a first program, which is being done for the first time, like this, right? And that's called a batch for us, right? People who went through coach training to become internal coaches itself, right? So we've completed a batch of 20 people. We started another batch today itself for 20 odd people. And as Shailesh said, this is going to go through the organization slowly, right? A lot more people will be trained on coaching itself. The next step was to now obviously do coaching as well, right? So as of today, there are 200 and, correct me if I'm wrong, Shadish, 220 odd people going through coaching within the organization, which includes both internal coaches coaching them as well as external coaches coaching them out there. And it's the entire top talent group, not at the top management people, but across the system, whoever is the top talent, across layers, wherever they are, whoever they are, they have access to coaching, they are going through coaching. And with more and more internal coaches, the strategy is to create and give access to as many people beyond this. So the design is that the sustenance will come from this internal coaching and the buy-in from the top. Top management is completely aligned, as you can see here, right? And Kshitij can talk more about that part, saying what is making the top management here really get this done. What did he sell? What did he talk to them? What were the reluctances that came in, kind of thing, budget constraints that come in, and obviously, so how he navigated through that system itself to get where we are today. So going to take a pause. Shripad, did that answer your question or anything else?
It did, and it did answer my question, Rajat, and I'm with you in this curiosity, going to Kshitij and understanding why did it make business sense? Because that's a question which is coming up already in the Q&A as well, in various forms. How did you put up the business case, if I were to put it in simple terms?
So as I mentioned, Sripad, a couple of indicators that were there. As I mentioned, we were kind of in a transition phase, and we had a very clear-cut strategy 5 years down the line where you want to reach. And in order to reach that, you need to have a culture which enables that strategy to execute. So it was very clear that in order to reach that particular goal, we need to have more such leaders equipped with this particular aspect, right? And in order to do that, it was very important and imperative that we start now and not wait where the fire goes up and then we kind of fill it. So I think from a leadership team, I think we've been fortunate around everyone believes in terms of people development. People first is always the focus area for all of us. So I think for me, I didn't have to do much of a selling. So I think we probably are allowed to do an experiment. So I think when this experiment worked, we kind of immediately scaled it up. right? So I think that's what agility is all about, right? You have to in short do a prototype, see what it works, what needs to do better, and then we kind of course correct and then take it to the next level. So I think this was more of an agile way of kind of doing a pilot and then see what works, what doesn't work, and then take it to the next level. So as Rajat was mentioning, we have 200 people already getting a personal coach, and I think that itself was an aspirational aspect for a talent pool. And one of the very strong case that we had is that we wanted to create a very solid learning journey for a talent pool, which is just over and above the training programs, which is over and above probably what you generally give it to a talent pool. And we wanted to really make it aspirational. And the whole idea of getting a personal coach made it aspirational. Everyone looked at saying, "Oh, am I getting a personal coach?" That kind of really helped them to kind of take that entire discussion to a next level. And the first session that we did was a chemistry session between the talent, the manager, and the coach to align and get a feedback that which are the areas I need to work on. These are my strengths. What are the areas I need to work on? So that alignment very solidly happened in the first meeting itself, and then it was very easy for them to kind of move up the ladder, and then have those very reflective conversation, right? And I think if you look at now within the leadership team that we went through the coaching program, whenever we meet, our conversations are very different. And now the chemistry that you said, it's very different that when you saw me, Rajat and Shailesh talking about it, we will have a very different way of conversation now compared to before coaching. And that's what it does. It takes guts to, people like Shailesh to talk about, being so vulnerable and saying that, this was the worst thing I went through. And when you see in the organization a leader of that stature being so vulnerable, people down the line automatically get inspired and say, yeah, it is okay to be authentic and it is okay to be vulnerable. And that's what leadership is all about. And that's what millennials would like to work around with. So to kind of really attract that 80% population chunk, we need to inculcate that engagement piece from them where they are allowed to think, make a decision, feel involved, and take it to the next level. So I think we had a very clear-cut case, so which everyone was aligned and agreed to, and which allowed us to kind of create that whole ecosystem and take that ecosystem to the next level.
And to add to that, what is also happening is, typically I have seen with large-scale coaching projects, there are a lot of dropouts that happen, right? People don't attend sessions. It's difficult to make them come for a session itself. If you see our journey in Schindler, it's 98 to 99% completion rate of each session every month.
Absolutely.
Right? People are doing their session. They are coming and getting coached, right? Which is the proof of the pudding that this is working in the organization. People want to come back to these sessions itself, right? And as somebody is asking, the quality of conversations, right? How do we know it is improving? As Chitu says, you can see the kind of conversation we are doing. This is how it is becoming in Schindler as of now. The kind of conversations that are happening, they are that trust-based conversations. They are that open conversations that are happening. And I know Kshitij has collected some data points as well and spoken to many people, and we collected some feedback too. And it's consistent across the board, right? People are okay discovering themselves in this process, and then okay talking about the discovery itself as well, about it, right? Which is basically telling you that people can trust each other in the system now.
Maybe Rajat, I also felt that the timing also helped us when we were doing it maybe during the pandemic, where we were not able to connect with people much, and that time maybe the certain environment was such that maybe the directive leadership would have actually created a chaos where people wanted to be heard, and this session, the kind of listening skills ability was improved. I will not say we have reached the level, but at least where I am today, I think has also helped us that we are hearing from the people. The kind of trust level is established in the entire organization is at a different stage. I'm with this company since last 17 years, but I think this has really helped us improving those interpersonal relationships. I could see that. In fact, Rajat, honestly, and Shepard, people, when they see the change in us, like I was there, my CFO was there, my regional vice president. I was asked by 2-3 people, sir, सब कुछ ठीक है ना? So I was kind, क्यों? Sir, आप छोड़ रहे हो क्या? I said, नहीं बाबा, I'm here. They could also feel that the boss is changing, and now we are actually going. And as Kshitij was mentioning, I want to share this because we have to change the style. Otherwise, it would be difficult to run the organization. So and the empathy is required, and we are extending that to the teams.
So Shailesh, as you speak about this, for me and for everyone in the audience, as we are listening to this amazing story, we are hearing all this vulnerability, trust, empathy, uh, and ability to connect to people irrespective of who they are and how they are different from you. And clearly, that is something that has changed, and that has been the changed language at your company. I was wondering, along this journey, what are some of the surprises, pleasant or unpleasant, that you found when people
Pleasant are
started?
honestly very less, Shirpat. Let me be very open
Uh-huh.
and transparent. Pleasant surprises were never part of this, at least my sessions.
Mhm.
Frustration, unpleasant, and I will share. Here is the person who's sitting. My second session, and CFO asked something, and unfortunately, Rajat was also there, so it was not only by admin. And when CFO asked the question, with my 27 years of industry experience, kind of dinosaur in the organization, I immediately jumped out. Okay, Arey, Sandhya, this is the solution. Rajat immediately hold me. I still remember. Rajat said me, Shailesh, we don't want to hear you. That's a different problem what Sandhya is facing. She is a different personality. You are a different personality. Don't kind of force your answers to hers. Her requirement would be different. That itself. And suddenly, second session, and these kind of issues we used to get. Like we started doing a coach session for 20 minutes initially. What we used to do as a coach, I am first 5 minutes, I am a coach. Next, the moment 5 minutes are over, I used to tend to go to my autopilot mode into mentoring. Are problem, and I'm here. I'm giving you the solution. Page number 36, para number 2. This is your session. And then I used to realize, oh God, rather than listening, I'm only doing more of the talking. So these kind of issues we faced a lot. Those 20 minutes used to be most difficult minutes of my life. I still remember that Chakdeka dialogue, wo 70 minute. So we used to also get worried of, oh, 20 minutes. But I think over a period of sessions, I think we could get a hold of it. And I really, so many times I'm taking Arvind and Rajat ka name. I never, very few programs in my entire 27 years, I speak so high about it. It's very close to the heart. Kshitij, you want to add anything quickly?
Of course, nice. I think you've already given that accreditation because pleasing Shailesh on programs is really difficult. But yes, I think the whole idea was to kind of really break that whole conditioning that happens when you come to workplace, right? And everybody is conditioned that way, ki, you have to meet and have a conversation, so you have to give a solution. And the biggest challenge answering to your question, Shripad, is that when these people went on to at workplace, initially there were a lot of challenges because their team members were expecting an answer. And this guy is saying, okay, what do you think what we can do? What makes this say this to you? So people were like, what's happening with him? Why is he not telling me the answer? So even for the coachee, probably, for him also it was a new world to discover. And then for a coach also, it's important to have that patience for a longer time because the magic is not going to happen in just few days or few weeks. It is a lot of practice, which really makes that whole difference. So I think that was a bigger challenge for us when we took that whole piece at workplace where these people are saying that, throughout the sessions back to, Rajat and Arvind saying, I tried doing this, but it didn't work out. Yes, we had those challenges also because both were not ready to, see each other in a different perspective. So it takes time, and it is very important that you follow the entire process. Moment you try to build your own philosophy, acha theek hai, chalo, let me do this, and then I will integrate something of my own method, it will not work. And at workplace, it's important to switch from a coach to mentor to a boss. That's also very important. But when you know this tool of coaching, you know what exactly when I have to switch on and when I have to switch off. But your ability to move swiftly into different styles is what will help you. And if you have that coaching style with you, you know when to use that. So I think that's the game. So that was
Well
a key
said.
challenge, and we still are facing that. And hopefully, with a lot of conversation, with a lot of education and awareness, we will overcome it soon.
Rajat, there was one question that has been coming up, which is different from what is being spoken about, which is that many people in the audience seem to be curious about what they may say is the business end of things, which is how do you measure outcome, how do you measure whether it's making a difference to every person, is it just self-awareness, is it making a difference to the business? So not just at Schindler, if I may just broad base the question and ask you in your wide and deep experience, what's the best way to look at the effectiveness of coaching?
So, so Okay, two parts to this question, right? So one is basically you need to look at two things, ROE and ROI. So there is returns on expectation and return on investment. ROE is done mostly out there in the world in coaching because it's easier to get done, right? So let's say your expectation is like in the case of Schindler, it is about creating conversations, a different kind of conversations in the organization. The style is different in the organization. So the intent would be to simply understand how have conversations shifted in the organization, and that is a return on expectations, right? We expected something, and have we got the returns on that on the whatever we have invested in coaching, right? So that is more and less done more across the world in all the organizations. Organizations like GSK, Adhir is here in the audience as well, who was part of GSK team as well. There is TCS, who recently won the Prism Award from ICF for creating a coaching culture in their organization. And fortunately, I was the nominating coach for them as well, who won the Prism Award. And there's a lot of information, lot of gathering of data that happened across the ROE part. ROI, on the other hand, is slightly more difficult because you'll have to attribute a certain cent or a paisa to coaching. And you can't certainly say coaching made this happen. So let's say, if a person, senior leader like Shailesh, went through coaching, and till now Schindler was doing 100 rupees revenue, now they moved on to 150 rupees revenue at the end. How much will you contribute that 50 rupees increase to Shailesh getting coached? So the ROI calculations are taken at a percentage level, saying, hey, assuming 5% is the difference made by coaching, so you will attribute 2.5 rupees to coaching. But that's the ROI you actually got from coaching on an investment itself, right? These are difficult measures to create, but yes, typically ROE is what is done. We are doing the same in Schindler as well. We are going with ROE for the time being because it's more about expectations. It's more about shifts within the organization. So we are measuring those shifts as well as of now.
So maybe to
in
add
fact, looking
to
from
what
the
Sorry, I was just
please
adding to what Rajat question. Rajat answer is ROI, ROE. I'll add one more E, which is of return of engagement also, because while indirectly coaching will always be an enabler, it will never kind of justify only because of coaching. This is what the ROI, we've got. That's what Rajat is mentioning. But indirectly, as an organization, what do we check? We check in terms of trust index, how the trust index have moved. We check on the engagement levels through engagement surveys, right? We have within our organization internal customer satisfaction survey where we give feedback to each other. We have a manager feedback survey where employee gives feedback to each other. So overall, when we look at these 6-7 parameters, these are indirect ways to check how the overall engagement involvement has probably also increased. So just like all the other two, this also becomes an enabler, and then through which we can probably say that this is what it has impacted.
And there is always the question that I know this sounds like a bit of going backwards, but to first principles, because there have been questions around that, and we are at around the 5:24 p.m. mark now. There have been some people in the audience saying this is all fine, but what about mentoring? What about training? And I think as coaches as well as people who are rolling out a coaching program, we understand that every one of these helping approaches has their place in the sun. They all work together to create change. So between you, Kshitij and Rajat, what's your take about the entire L&D intervention approach, if I may say, choosing one versus the other? What's your take?
Kshitij, you want to go first?
Kshitij, you are it.
Yes, Kshitij. Yeah.
So maybe, sorry, Sripad, if you can just quickly turn the question again once.
I'll turn the question around from your point of view. There are people here in the audience who are saying, as I have to choose between L&D interventions, training, coaching, mentoring, an internal program on the job, and so on. What's the place for coaching in this entire matrix?
So for me, I think it all depends on the context of the organization and how you see that context, because it's very contextual in terms of where you want to build, because there is no first solution where I say coaching is about learning, coaching is about mentoring, or coaching is about training. I'm no one to say that. I think each and every aspect holds an equal value. On the job is absolutely as important as, and I think I was hearing someone that 70-20-10 wala principle is no longer applicable. The 70 has become the 40, right? But what is more important is understanding the context of the organization, what do you want to do with that, and then take a call accordingly. So I would not be able to give you a very rock solid answer saying that this is where it kind of you can peg it here or you peg it there. For us, it makes a lot of sense in terms of the way our context was evolving, and we wanted to kind of create a culture in making. So we were very clear that we want to look at things not from a training issue perspective, but a coaching perspective and a culture perspective. Because a lot of times what happens is the right diagnostic, if is not wrong, people at the front line managers can say, you know what, अरे इसको ना एक soft skill training चाहिए ना, he is probably not talking, communication skills का training करा दो यार. And primary, when you look at that diagnostic and you do a immediate solution, it never works, because that's a superficial level that we go and give solution. But you realize down the line that there is a challenge with the manager and subordinate relationship itself. Then it becomes, you then get into deeper, you understand it's a larger issue. It is more of a system issue, and then it kind of becomes a cultural issue. So it's very important to get the context right, do a right diagnostic, and then plan your intervention.
Yeah, and to add to Kshitij, and I know we don't have much time left, is basically about deciding, is it about skill? Is it about will? And how much individualization is required here for the, can something be done in a group construct and given to an audience itself? And then do I need to move from here to an individualization piece? So you will choose training, mentoring, coaching based on the individualization requirements, as well as the skill and the will concept of the person, right? So everything has its space depending on that the context of that thing itself.
Last thing I would want to add here, Shripad, is also what he also wanted to do was to enhance coachability within the organization.
Any famous last words that I can have Rajat first from you and then Kshitij and Shailesh.
Maybe Rajat.
So last words would be, I think this is the start of what's happening in India. I'm seeing huge strides being made in India in coaching as of now. I'm seeing organizations investing in larger and larger programs and not just keeping coaching to the top management or 2-3 people, or just using it for issues or correction basis. So that maturity is coming in the industry, and I'm just enjoying and loving it where we are today in India in respect to coaching.
Kshitij?
No, so I'd probably say that last word is being coachable is more important. In the world where there are a lot of coaches and less coaches, it's important to be also coachable. And I think as an organization, if every organization strives to have more people who are coachable, I think the work is done. So I think that's it from my end.
So but for me, I think I was the customer, like I was the participant for one of the program. And for me, it was earlier only one style. Now at least I have this coaching as a language. I know where to use it, when to use it, how much to use it. So like we have the language, more language, more is better. I think one more language which is helping me in my growth, which is also helping my team in terms of trust, in terms of engagement, which surely will take Schindler to the next level. I want to reach maybe where Arvind or Rajat is. I know it's a long journey, but at least that aim is there. We will surely go there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this entire journey of courage, vulnerability, trust, empathy. I think it's been a privilege for all of us, for me, of course, but also for the audience to hear this very live example of what coaching can do. On behalf of the International Coaching Federation's Mumbai chapter, thank you very much once again, Shailesh, Kshitij, and our very own Rajat, for speaking about coaching in an efficient manner in such a short duration that we had here today. We're also happy to, as a sign off, mention that for those of you who are more interested in coaching, want to know further, in August, the ICF's annual India Coaching Conclave is coming up. So you're all invited in the third week of August to the ICF India Coaching Conclave. Watch the space. We'll tell you more about it. And with that, thanks once again from ICF to NHRDN. And I hand it back to our host. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to dear all panelists. And I can say an interesting point which I learned from this session was coaching is to trouble the comfort and comfort the troubled. So once again, it was indeed a pleasure to have you four today. Thank you for your time. Have a good day. Hope to interact with you soon in near future.
Thank you, Isha. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
So much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you.